Good morning, this is John Tanner. Wanted to talk a little bit today about riding in the Uinta Mountains of northern Utah. The Uinta Mountains run from about the Colorado-Utah state line over to Salt Lake City or Park City area. They're the only east-west mountain range in the United States. They had the highest peak in Utah, Kings Peak, at over 13,000 feet. We often refer to the Uintas as the North Slope or the South Slope. The South Slope is accessed off of US 40 through Utah. On the North Slope, you typically drive across southwest Wyoming and drop down into the Uinta Mountains from that. This first area is Naturalist Basin. It's accessed off of the Highline Trail, which is you can get to on the Highway 150 between Evanston and Camas, Utah. This is an easy ride. It's only about 6 miles in, 6 miles back, so 12 miles a day. It's fairly level. You're starting at a little over 9,000 feet. You don't climb a lot. It's a pretty level trail. It does get a lot of hikers. It's very popular with the foot traffic, people who hike in for a day or who go in and camp and spend the night. So you will see a lot of people on the trail hiking on weekends, especially holiday weekends. It's got a lot of rocks on it. Typical, everything in the Uinta is going to have a lot of rocks, but it's a pretty area. Once you get into to Naturalist Basin, it's a gorgeous place to see. Lots of waterfalls in the month of June when the snow's melting. There's a lot of natural lakes in there with water and fishing. There are no campfires allowed in this basin because of the heavy use. So, we usually make a day of it, ride in, have lunch, an apple and crackers, whatever, and then ride back out that afternoon, just make a day trip of it. This is the parking lot at the Highline Trailhead. It's a nice big lot, but it can become overcrowded on busy weekends, and the hikers park in the horse traffic area. The Highline Trail is a trail that runs east and west across these mountains, the Uinta Mountains. Some of it's accessible by horses, some of it gets a little too rough. But there are several places we can get to from the Highline Trailhead. So not only Naturalist Basin, but we oftentimes will ride into Four Lakes Basin, which is about 10 miles in. Oftentimes we spend the night there and camp and come back out after the weekend. There's 4 lakes there you can fish. Another trailhead accessed off of Highway 150 is the Crystal Lakes Trailhead, which is near Trial Lake, Crystal Lake, Washington Lake. This trailhead allows you to go into 4 or 5 different directions, so there's a lot of different trails out of there. They all climb up into the tops of the mountain there, so you're starting at almost 10,000 feet, and most of your riding is above tree line where you're up in the rocks. This is very rocky trail country, so I suggest you probably have shoed horses if you're going to come spend time up in this area. This is a very, very popular area with hikers and scouts and so forth, so you will see a lot of other people on the trails. That's fine. Most of them are courteous and get off to the side and let you go by, but you don't expect to have a lot of solitude in this area, but it's some of the most beautiful terrain that you can explore. As you can see here, you've got almost incredible vistas when you're up at 11,000 feet and see forever. and look over and see the other mountain peaks in the area, and see the lakes down below you. This is not an area you're going to get into in late May or maybe even early June. It's probably something that's going to take till maybe July and August to explore and get into.
He's fine, let him bark.
You can see on the map here there's just an awful lot of lakes in that area that you can ride over and explore and fish. A little lower on the highway is the North Fork of the Provo, Yellow Pine, Soapstone, Murdoch Basin. There's a lot of other trails off of Highway 150 that you can pull off and explore and ride up. Each one of them typically rides up a drainage with a creek in it that you can water your horses across the water. Most of them, like this North Fork, is about a 10-mile ride, 13 miles one direction. So if you want to park a car up at Crystal Lake and park your car down at the bottom, you could ride up and drive your other vehicle down. We usually ride halfway up, turn around and come back down, so we don't have to worry about shuttling vehicles, but you could. Again, it's a rocky trail. Other than the bottom, you're kind of down here in the flats. You can see I've got a storm coming in here I'm trying to beat, so we're kind of hustling across the flats here, trying to get back to the truck before we get wet. This particular fence gave my young 4-year-old mare a chance to practice a little bit on side passing and opening gates. And so I do the chain and go through and shut the gate behind us before we head back out across the flats. The Uinta Mountains do get some thunderstorms in late July and August, so be prepared to have a storm blow in and come upon you really quick. And usually carry a jacket or a slicker or something, because it can change really quick up in that country. As you can see here, the trailhead is right on the side of the paved highway, so you only have to pull a few yards off the pavement to find a place to park and get going. Soapstone is a campground and an area off the highway. We usually just park just as you pull up the highway, not in the campground. There's some beaver ponds and stuff right there below the campground, and there's a trail that rides down through that. And again, this is more in the 8,000 foot, 7,000 foot elevation, so it's a little easier to get to earlier in the summer when the high country's still frozen and got snow and drifts on it. They do run some cattle in here in the summer, and so there's some cow trails and there's some water tanks and so forth. Yellow Pine is another trailhead a little bit lower on the Highway 150. It rides across the front of the mountain there, then follows up to Yellow Pine Creek. Across the front is pretty easy going, but once you get on the creek, it's a little rockier and rougher country. There again, you can go a long ways up. We usually go up 4 or 5 miles, turn around and come back out. This same same parking area now is also used by mountain bikers. They built a Slate Creek mountain bike trail, so they use the same parking lot for that. And you can't ride the horses on the bike trail, but you can zigzag. There's some ways to crisscross it. The East Fork of the Bear is a river, and the trail follows up along the river, so most of the trail is right along the river banks. It follows up the canyon, so it starts at the end of the road, and you go into the wilderness area pretty quick after the road ends. The road itself is 10, 12 miles of gravel from the highway over. It gets a little washboardy in the summer, so not everybody likes to go into this trailhead. There's a lot of ATVs on the road, but of course they can't go past the end of the road, so you don't see them once you get onto the trail itself. The area at the bottom burned about 10 years ago, and new growth's coming in. The lakes you're seeing in these pictures are at a Boy Scout camp just below the trailhead. The trailhead itself climbs up a little bit on the hillside to get around some of the marshy areas and proceeds up the canyon. About halfway up, it splits and goes to two different upper elevation lakes. The right one going to Norris Lake and the left one going to Alsop Lake. Moving over to the North Slope, these next few trails you have to come in from Wyoming. And so off of Highway 80 and drop into Mountain View and so forth. So Red Castle is one of my favorite rides. You park at 9,000 feet and ride up the canyon. If you get all the way up to the upper Red Castle, you get up to about 12,000 feet. It's a nice big parking lot. They've got some horse corrals there. It is a popular area in the summer for hikers, and as you see here, the moose come in and steal your hay if you don't put it up. There's a lot of areas you can explore from here, but mainly the trail goes up the river and back down the river. And then there's the occasional trail that goes laterally across the face of the mountains. There's Red Castle right there in the photo and the map showing it's about 11 miles in for most people. Turn around and come back out. Henry's Fork is the next drainage to the east. Same thing as the Red Castle one. You start down about 9,000 feet, follow the river up. When you get up to the top, it'll take you all the way up to Kings Peak, which is the highest place in Utah, but it's probably not going to get that far with your horse. It does have corrals at the bottom to put your horses in, and if you're going to stay the night and want to camp. The North Slope of the Uintas has a lot of different trailheads that you can access. I don't have pictures of all of them, but you can come in from Brownie Lake, Beaver Meadow, Hoop Lake, Black Fork, Burnt Fork. There's a lot of different places you can pull in with similar trailheads. Most of them have corrals, and you can ride in from those. Now jumping over to the South Slope off of US 40. Moon Lake has two major trails that come out of there. You can go up to Brown Duck Lake or up Lake Fork. Uh, the road into Moon Lake is 20 miles of gravel, and then the trails can be rough in places for those people who want to get away from people and not see anybody for a few days. The Swift Creek Trailhead is accessed off the same road going into Moon Lake. You just turn off a little quicker. It brings you into the trailhead. You can either ride up the Yellowstone River, up Swift Creek, up to the Timothy Lakes. Again, you start at 8,000 feet. You get up to 10, 11,000 foot. You're right about tree line when you're camping and stuff. These are mostly areas that you're going to go in, spend the night, and come out because they're 10, 12 miles in, 10, 12 miles back out of rough trail. There are a lot of other trailheads off the South Slope that you can access. Granddaddy's, Garfield Basin, White Rocks. I don't have pictures of those to show you, so I'm just not going to put them in here, but you're welcome to explore those also.